And every once in a while I find something, somebody gives me an article or something like that about my dad that means a lot to me. I got ready to come down here and I looked around and I'm going like, I've got a couple of things, right? And remember, I was the guy that when we came back from the racetrack, went out, put the car on the lift, started to get it clean, and your dad would always take these off and leave them hanging on the mirror.
Yeah. What about the future of RCR? So I personally privately debate this with all the owners. Richard has given a lot to the sport, as has Roger Penske and Rick Hendrick as well. All of them, Joe Gibbs, they all have an idea in their mind of what the plan is long term for their business, right? You guys, having worked at RCR, might have a better idea than anyone on what ends up happening over there in the next 20 years, right? Who ends up responsible for the day-to-day operations when Richard decides enough is enough. I'm done doing this. I mean, I don't think he ever does. I think Richard will run that deal until his last day. But then, is it Austin Dillon? Is it a combination of Austin and his dad? Who ends up, you think, leading RCR into the future?
Well, I want to say this, and listen, there's nobody in this world that's been a better friend to me than Richard Childress. We grew up together as kids. We've raced together. I want to say the difference between Richard Childress and all these other guys. All those other guys were businessmen that became racers. Richard Childress is a racer that became a businessman. Now, he's done a great job there with over the last 50 years of making this race team what it is today. I've never had the opportunity, and I don't think I would want to be in those meetings when you decide what you're going to do. When you no longer can do this. I agree with you because I've asked Richard before, when are you going to go enjoy yourself? And he says this is how I enjoy myself, right? Yeah. It's been tough here this year for those guys. They've got some issues they've got to straighten out. On the Xfinity side, he's got to be your worst nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Right now. They've got that thing figured out. On the Cup side, not so much. How much longer does Austin Dillon drive? Does Mike Dillon? Or is there another plan? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure, and I'm going to say this here, and I'm sure there's a plan now because at one time there was no plan. And we went to Daytona, and we lost your dad, and we came back, and nobody knew what anything was going to be. So I think that day, for a lot of race teams, a lot of people in this business, they said we've got to figure this out.
Nothing's forever, right?
And I think they've got it figured out. Just don't know what it is.
Man, well, I've certainly enjoyed this conversation, man. Is there any stories we've left out?
Probably.
Well,
some on purpose.
I've got a little something, and I say a little something.
Okay.
And part of this is my mistake, and I don't know what you've got and what you don't have. I've told before that, my dad lost his life at Darlington in 1957, and hearing stories about my dad, like we've talked about your dad today, are special to me. And every once in a while I find something, somebody gives me an article or something like that about my dad that means a lot to me. I got ready to come down here and I looked around and I'm going like, I've got a couple of things, right? And remember, I was the guy that when we came back from the racetrack, went out, put the car on the lift, started to get it clean, and your dad would always take these off and leave them hanging on the mirror.
Yeah.
And I would always
I got a pair of them in my toolbox.
Reach in and grab them. So I didn't know whether you had any of these, but these are a little bit different. Now, you got to forgive me because the elastic cord has stretched and worn out, but these are a pair of your dad's goggles. Mm-hmm. But I wrote on the strap when I took them out of the car, winner Daytona 125. Now, unfortunately, when I wrote that on there,
Didn't put a
I
year
didn't
on
put
it.
what year. So these could be. These
Several
could
years
be,
could have been.
because we won it
Won it
10
12.
years straight, man, and nobody's ever going to do that. So I wanted you to give you those to hang on the wall. And the other thing that I wanted to say, when we started this with Richard Childress and your dad, it was a time in the sport where things were starting to get pretty good, and we kind of had an opportunity to step out of the van, and we had one airplane. And we all met at the old Lexington airport. And Will, David, Kurt, myself, your dad, Teresa, and Richard, and the pilot, David Smith, we got on that airplane and we went to the racetrack and back from the racetrack. And we absolutely spent some of the most quality time that you can imagine on that airplane, talking about the future and talking about racing. And it was unbelievable to spend that much time.
We didn't need Monday morning meetings or anything.
No.
Yeah.
We had our stuff done by the time we landed. Just whatever we need to talk about that day, what we got to do next week, whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it made everybody tighter too. I mean,
For sure.
on the good days, on the bad days, didn't matter. Somebody screwed up.
Yeah.
We did it together,
But the only bad part was if you were playing cards with your dad, you had to lose. He wasn't getting off the plane till he won the card game. No matter if you finally won some of his money, you weren't going to keep it because he was going to get it back before they opened the door and get off the
That's
airplane.
hilarious.
You could cut the deck with him 10 times and he'd win 8 of them. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Just
Man, I appreciate y'all. I was so lucky to have been a part of or been around for all of those years or majority of the years as a kid and growing up around y'all, and I feel very lucky to still be able to sit with y'all and talk to y'all today. I've had some good opportunities to spend time with Kirk over the past couple of years, especially with his induction into the Hall of Fame. And Chocolate, you're always around and always so available and easy to access for all of our fans, and such a great asset to the industry and to the sport. So thank you for giving me some time today. I love y'all. I'm thankful for y'all, and good to see you.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. We're awful proud of you as well.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
And we know that it's always not been easy for you. It's been tough. But man, what you've been able to do for this sport is absolutely unbelievable.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. Well, I love to. I really am motivated by making people like you proud. So
Thank you.
I have a lot of people in my life that motivate me, and y'all are two of them. So thank you very much.
in terms of how many people you reach and the stuff you do for the sport, and a lot of things you don't have to do, but in a lot of ways you're bigger than your dad ever was. And talk about filling shoes and stuff. A lot of stuff you've done with this and other things you've worked on, he wouldn't have been able to do it as well, I don't think.
Yeah.
And the new technology, all the things you do are really admirable. And
Man, I appreciate it.
We're proud of you too, man.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.